What a treacherous thing to believe that a person is more than a person. This quote is from Paper Towns, a popular John Green novel. In this book, Quentin, the main character, he falls in love with his neighbor named Margot. Margot is beautiful and talented and interesting, and from afar, Quentin decides that she's the one. And they had one interaction years before, and based on that interaction, he decides to chase Margot across the country. And when he finally finds her and confronts her, she ends up not being quite the person that he expected. Quentin fell victim to a phenomenon called the halo effect. Now, I've studied this topic, and I've also had some personal experiences with the halo effect. And I believe that learning more about the halo effect will help you to have healthier and happier relationships. Today, I'm going to discuss exactly what the halo effect is. I'm going to give some examples of the halo effect. And lastly, I will be talking about why it's important to know about the halo effect. So to begin, our book, Looking In, Looking Out, defines the halo effect as the power of a first impression to influence subsequent perceptions. It's called the halo effect because when we have a good first impression of someone, we cushion every subsequent interaction with that person based on our first impression. Or in other words, we see a figurative halo around that person. Kind of like this one. The halo effect distorts our perception of people and leads us to have higher expectations of a person, and it builds a relationship on fundamental untruths. To avoid this, we should take the book's advice and keep an open mind and be willing to change our opinions as events prove them mistaken. Next, I'll be giving further examples about how the halo effect impacts our lives. So our book, Looking In, Looking Out, gives so many examples of different relationships the halo effect affects. Romantic relationships, new friendships, roommates, job interviews, co-workers, the list goes on and on. Almost every new relationship that we form is affected by the halo effect. In my personal life, I have had an experience with the halo effect. It happened when I met a boy. And the first time we hung out, he was just so cute and funny and nice, and I just saw him with a halo on his head. And as our relationship progressed, after warnings from my parents and from my family and my friends, I continued to see him with that halo. And even time and time again, when he let me down or did things that I didn't like, I continued to see him with a halo. And my first impression colored my final perception of him. And it wasn't until we broke up that I looked back and saw that I didn't see him for who he really was. And I really wish I had the book's advice and been willing to change my opinion of him as I learned more things about him. Finally, I'd like to talk about why I think it's important to know about the halo effect. This phenomenon can be so powerful, and it's normal and honestly unavoidable to make judgments about people when we first meet them. But the important thing is to keep an open mind after that first impression so that we don't have unrealistic expectations. When we see someone with a halo around their head, we're going to be perpetually disappointed because no one can live up to an angelic standard. No one is a 100% angel all the time. And we will be disappointed and dissatisfied in all of our relationships if we don't let them be a human. Truth is, nobody wears a halo on their head all the time, except for maybe on Halloween. It's okay to respect others and to hold them in a high regard, but it's not okay to have unrealistic expectations. In conclusion, today we talked about what the halo effect is, some examples of the halo effect, and why I think it's important to know about the halo effect. The halo effect is our tendency to base our permanent opinion of someone based on a positive first impression. It can affect almost every new relationship we form and can lead to unhealthy and disappointing relationships. It is important to be aware of the halo effect so we can build relationships based on truth and realistic expectations, so we don't spend our time continually dissatisfied in our relationships. So now that you know a little bit more about the halo effect, who in your life do you see a halo around?